All right, we will call this meeting to order. It's Monday, April 22nd, exactly 4 p.m. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Alejo? Commissioner Gorley?
Present.
Commissioner Butcher?
Present.
Commissioner LAFCO?
Here.
Commissioner Lopez?
Here.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Here.
Commissioner Lasco? Commissioner Parker? Here. Commissioner Forsyth?
Here.
Commissioner Snocker?
Here.
Commissioner Stevens?
Alejo.
Okay, Alejo just arrived. Yes, okay. All right. Commissioner Gorley, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you. All right, public comments. Anyone may address the commission briefly about items not already on the agenda. Please fill out a speaker form, which is available at the forum. Do we have anybody here who wants to speak on something not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move right along. The consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved in one motion, and there will be no discussion on individual items unless a commissioner or member of the public requests a specific item to be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion. Anybody from the public want to pull anything? All right.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
All right. And it's approved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. All right. Public hearing. Conduct public hearing to consider the proposed annual budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. Second hearing. Receive a report from our executive officer.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the Commission, this is indeed the second and final hearing to consider the proposed annual budget for the coming fiscal year. That begins on July 1st. Between the meeting a month ago and today, we did distribute the proposed budget at your direction to all of our local agencies. To date, we have received no comments. Unless there are some that may come orally this afternoon. I did receive a couple of questions, but no comments.
Okay, thank you.
And so at this point, it would be appropriate to conduct the hearing and then consider adoption of the resolution with the budget attached.
All right, thank you. We'll open the public hearing. Does anyone out there want to make a comment on the budget? Hearing none. Do we have any comments from the commission?
I make a motion, we approve the budget as presented.
All right. Did I hear a second?
Yes, you did.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right. Item 9, conduct a public hearing to consider the Marina Coast Water District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Study and the district's proposed Sphere of Influence Amendment annexation. LAFCO file number 18-03, and I understand our council has an announcement to make.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, members of the Commission. You might recall that I've excused our office and myself from advising the Commission on this matter due to the history of litigation between the county and the Marina Coast Water District. Also, just for the record, our office generally advises the Seaside County Sanitation District, but we have recused ourselves and our attorney from advising the district on this matter for the same reasons. So I will be stepping down from the dais while you have this discussion. The Commission has previously authorized the retention of outside counsel to advise on this matter. So I just wanted to announce that for the record.
All right, thank you, Council. And we'll receive a report from our Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair. We have to, I think, just take a moment and connect in our special counsel. He's on the other side of California. So I believe we just have to give him a call. And then, Gail, can you give instructions, please? Or is he on?
On anticipated city growth in Gonzales and Soledad. Executive Director.
Thank you. In your agenda packet, item number 8, we have outlined some very preliminary city growth plans for the cities of Gonzales and city of Soledad. And we have representatives here today from both of those cities here at our invitation to provide our commission with an update on these growth plans. This is very preliminary, but it's a great opportunity for the commission to learn about the plans of these cities and perhaps to hear your questions and any initial comments that you may have. Darren prepared this report, and so I know he'll introduce our colleagues as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I forget, I'll go ahead and mention from the beginning that we have Matthew Sant, Community Development Director from the City of Gonzales, and Brent Slama, Community Development and Economic Development Director from the City of Soledad with us this evening. Excuse me. I'd just like to also mention up front that we have placed before you today a one-page summary of city-related sphere of influence and annexation policies, not to, with the idea not to come to any decisions today, but rather just to provide some context and a little bit of framework for the types of considerations that we will have before us when we do have proposals on file from these two cities at some point in the pretty near future. Having said that, this item is an opportunity for the planning directors of Gonzales and Soledad to informally and preliminarily introduce the commissioners to the very significant development concepts that the two cities are considering bringing forward to LAFCO within the next year or so. And this is being done as part of their ongoing efforts, of course, to keep pace with the needs of their residents and their communities. These are very substantial proposals, as we've outlined in the staff report in your packet. On the screen at this time is the Gonzales proposal, showing the city, existing city limits in dark green, a sphere of influence designation that was created in 2014, which is actually very difficult to see right now on the screen, but there's a dashed line in this general area here that outlines the sphere of influence, this large area here. And highlighted in yellow is the area that the city is going to be, some area within there is what the city will be proposing as an annexation proposal in the near future. And just very briefly, I will show the City of Soledad's overview as well, where they are looking at three separate areas. Number one here being a site that would be about a 640-acre sphere amendment and partial annexation for primarily residential development. Number two down here is the Los Coches site, and there's a historic adobe there that the city owns and is interested in connecting to the rest of the city and opening up for some small amount of development down there. And number three, over in this area, between the existing city and Metz Road, is an area where the city has expressed interest in putting in a major roadway to serve as a kind of a bypass to get traffic out of the neighborhoods and off the main city streets. And that part of the proposal may entail some amount of residential development as well. So again, the very substantial proposals that, if fully implemented in the future, would add up to approximately a third to a half of the existing acreage and population for both of these cities in the long term, which is a scale of proposed city expansion that the Salinas Valley really has had very little of in the last 10 to 20 years. And for that reason, staff thought it would be mutually beneficial to give the cities an opportunity to present their potential future development proposals and give commissioners a chance as well to ask questions and provide input. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Sant.
Thank you, Darren. Is there a subsequent graphic, or are these the only two?
We have We have,
Let's leave
These
it on
maps that
that
you
one.
gave me?
Yeah, leave it on that
and
one.
then also from the,
And-
from our
okay,
report, we
even
have-
better, leave it on that one.
yeah, okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Sunt, Community Development Director for the City of Gonzales. I hope Commissioner Chris Lopez is feeling better. Good. So I want to point out that Glenn Pace of Pembroke Development is here in the audience, sitting here with the suit. And he may want to have an opportunity to say something. That's up to the Executive Director, I think. This project started off about 2003. Pembroke Development has an option on the Fano property. The Fano property, as you see in this top smaller square in the graphic, the total acreage of that property is about 767 acres. What's being proposed for annexation is about 400 acres, and that's the area that you see in, what is that color? A turquoise color in that smaller graphic. And in the larger multicolored one, you'll see the variety of proposed land uses that are proposed at this stage. 1,700 houses approximately, 35 acres of parkland, 12 acres of elementary school. There's detention ponds and whatnot. We're looking at annexing, going through the process of getting it to your commission late this year, early next year. And there's a few chores that have to be taken care of first. And that includes completing the infrastructure master plan reports. We anticipate those coming in as completed reports by mid-April to late April. And that would include drainage, water, wastewater, and transportation infrastructure reports. There's also an annexation fiscal impact report that will be getting underway soon. And involved with that, once the infrastructure master plan reports.
A great opportunity for this commission and your staff to be able to support the economic development goals of the city of Seaside and the city of Marina, and both of those cities in particular. So with that, I would like to note that we have some representatives here this afternoon from both the staff and board of Marina Coast, as well as community representatives who may wish to speak on this matter. And with that, Darren, if you can please provide an overview.
Community. The wastewater that it collects it then pumps to the Monterey One Water Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant outside of Marina. Marina Coast's existing jurisdictional boundaries cover central Marina, which is basically the non-Fort Ord portion of the city, shown on the screen there. And Marina Coast also owns and operates water and wastewater infrastructure throughout the former Fort Ord and has provided these services to Ord community residents since 1998 by contractual agreement with the Fort Ord Reuse Authority. Looking at the current sphere amendment and annexation proposal, this was submitted to LAFCO in April 2018. It does have a very large geographic scope. It's approximately 3 times the size of the existing district. The current population sizes are comparable. It's around 20,000 each in Central Marina and the Ord community. This will change as the Ord community growth outpaces growth in Central Marina in the future. AMBAG projections indicate Ord community population about 50% higher than Central Marina by 2030, which is not that far off. So basically about 39,000 in the Ord community and 26,000 in Central Marina. Although that 2030 Ord community number does include growth that is beyond the scope of Marina Coast's current proposal. Sub-areas within the current proposal by Marina Coast include the UC MBES Center, portions of it at least, East Garrison north of about Watkins Gate Road, portions of East Garrison that have either been approved and built and occupied, or in some cases under construction, not yet occupied. Abrams Park and Preston Park Housing in Marina, Cypress Knolls, Marina Heights / Sea Haven, University Village / the Dunes on Monterey Bay, CSUMB Main Campus and Promontory Housing Site, the projects at Main Gate, and U.S. Army retained housing in Seaside. The proposal also includes Olson Elementary School and Marina United Methodist Church, both in Central Marina, outside the Ord community. Lands in the proposal.
Your cell phone is going off and causing the interference with the microphone. There you go.
Thank you very much for that. Lands in the proposal either already receive Marina Coast services or have received development permit approvals for projects that will need water and wastewater services in the future. Effects of the proposal if approved by LAFCO. Upon annexation into the district, Ord community residents will become eligible to directly participate in Marina Coast governance. Currently, Marina Coast ratepayers in the Ord community, being outside of Marina Coast district boundaries, are ineligible to vote for or serve on the district's board of directors. This is a social equity issue and a long-standing point of contention expressed by numerous Ord community residents, including a few who have come to our meetings in recent months to express their support for this proposal and to express how important this change is to them. This is a change that Marina Coast's board supports. In fact, it's the primary rationale identified by Marina Coast in their application to LAFCO. I just would like to note also, in a similar spirit of expanding the voices of those who receive Marina Coast services, earlier this month, just a couple weeks ago, the district's executive committee directed Marina Coast staff to proceed with forming a new water user advisory committee, which will include representatives from the Army, the local cities, CSUMB, and the county. And this new committee will meet regularly and provide input to the board of directors. And Marina Coast staff anticipates that the committee may be established and operational just a little later this year, by mid to late 2019. There's a little bit of discussion on page 27 of your municipal service review and sphere of influence study that you have in your packet today. In terms of the actual water service and wastewater services provided by Marina Coast, those will be unaffected by LAFCO approval of the sphere amendment and annexation proposal. Marina Coast Water District and private property owners will also retain the right to request LAFCO approval of sphere amendments and annexations at a later date as needs arise for parcels outside the scope of this current sphere amendment and annexation proposal before you today. This proposal is a reduced proposal. The current scope of this proposal is about 440 acres, or about 8% less than what Marina Coast had originally requested when they filed the LAFCO application just about a year ago in April 2018. Marina Coast reduced its proposal in late 2018 pursuant to a settlement agreement with Landwatch Monterey County and with Keep Fort Ord Wild. And the slide up on the screen just shows an example in the yellow highlighting of some of the parcels that were taken out of the proposal pursuant to the settlement agreement. The two land use advocacy groups had sued Marina Coast earlier in 2018, before Marina Coast had submitted its application to LAFCO for the original larger proposal. The lawsuits were primarily concerned with potential impacts on the Salinas Valley groundwater basin, which is Marina Coast's primary water source, and which is also in a chronic state of overdraft, mostly due to ag operations in the Salinas Valley. The removed parcels are uninhabited, and many of them are planned for future development, but do not currently have approved development entitlements or permits. Pursuant to the settlement agreement, these parcels taken out of Marina Coast proposal are now proposed to be designated as future study area, which under LAFCO of Monterey County's locally adopted policies is territory outside of an adopted sphere of influence that may warrant inclusion in the sphere in future years. Further study would have to be completed prior to inclusion. This informal, non-binding designation is an indicator of an agency's interest in serving an area at some point in the future, but the designation does not exist or come from state LAFCO law. It's a local, informal designation under our policies. Other parcels that had been proposed as future study area originally in Marina Coast's original pre-settlement agreement proposal, the way it was originally submitted to LAFCO, continue to be proposed as future study areas. And just going back to one of these slides for a minute, basically it's all the areas shown in pink that are future study areas. Some of these lands now proposed as future study areas include most of the UC Best Center, areas of East Garrison that do not yet have any development permits or project level CEQA review, Seaside East parcels down here, parcels formerly associated with the now inactive Whispering Oaks and Monterey Downs projects, and also sites down there further south within the cities of Delray Oaks and a little section in the city of Monterey. Looking now to LAFCO staff's evaluation of the proposal. The resolution before you today in your packet reflects staff's evaluation that the proposal is in the public interest and is consistent with all applicable requirements of state law and locally adopted policies. Staff's recommended determinations are supported by the draft Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Study, or MSR, if you will, that is in your packet for this meeting. The MSR's executive summary on page 6 of the MSR includes key findings, which are shown here on your screen. Number 1, Marina Coast is successfully and reliably carrying out its mission. 2, the district proactively plans for its long-term capital improvement needs and funding levels. 3, groundwater overdrafting and seawater intrusion in the Salinas Valley groundwater basin remain a significant concern for the district's long-term water supply. And lastly, Marina Coast's proposed sphere of influence and annexation are appropriate and justified. Related to finding number 3, the MSR discusses the measures that Marina Coast has taken and is taking to implement the statewide mandates of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and to augment and diversify its water supply such that Marina Coast can reduce its reliance on groundwater as it moves into the future. And finally, regarding a supplemental memo that LAFCO staff circulated on Friday afternoon, we circulated a supplemental memo with 2 letters attached, one from Seaside County Sanitation District and the other from the city of Seaside. And in summary, the letters requested LAFCO to approve Marina Coast's proposal, but as part of that approval, to also either A, modify the proposal back to the original pre-settlement agreement version that Marina Coast submitted to LAFCO in 2018, or include conditions of approval seeking to establish that no challenges or charges may be assessed to future annexation of those parcels removed from the application. The city also requested that LAFCO determine if it is appropriate to exclude annexed areas from the benefit assessment district of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. Staff's supplemental memo outlines the reasons why we believe it's not possible for LAFCO to recommend in favor of the requests in the 2 letters, and why we therefore have no changes to the recommendations as they are presented in the original main executive officer's report for this agenda item. Final update, as of this morning, LAFCO received a letter from Landwatch in support of LAFCO staff's recommendations in the supplemental memo, and we have forwarded Landwatch's letter to the Commission and to the interested persons and groups listed in the EO report. Staff also received and distributed a similar letter from Molly Erickson on behalf of Keep Forward Wild. We've distributed that today as well. Lastly, we also just now received a letter today from a citizen in favor of the proposal, and you have that before you today. So in closing, based on all of the foregoing information, staff is recommending approval of both the proposal by Marina Coast Water District, and we are also recommending approval of the MSR, Sphere of Influence study, that helps bolster and support our recommendations, and we are, of course, recommending approval of the recommending that the Commission make findings related to the California Environmental Quality Act in relation to those determinations. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will now open the public hearing and hear from anyone who wants to speak. Please step forward and state your name and your affiliation before you speak, please.
Is this on? Hey, yes, thank you. Keith Vandermotten. I'm the general manager for Marina Coast Water District, and thank you for taking this item up today. I just wanted to just speak real quick to some of the things that were spoken to earlier by your executive officer about this being a long time matter that we're now finally getting to, and just really excited that we finally have gotten to this point. There's been a lot of work by both Marina Coast and LAFCO and others, I think, as we coordinated to get to this point today. And so I think we finally have gotten through some of the most difficult issues to get us to this point, and we're really looking forward to having finally the representation for those we serve to be able to run a vote for the board. So I think this is a really big matter for our customers, and we're really excited that it's finally at this point. And so I just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work that LAFCO has done to help support that, and as mentioned, some of the other Seaside County and the City of Seaside, and working with them to really coordinate. And I think that's just the beginning of the coordination. I think there's definitely going to need to be ongoing coordination, as Darren had talked about, our Water User Advisory Committee that we're looking at implementing over the next 6 months, and certainly we'll continue to encourage that level of coordination because it will be needed as FORA transitions even up until that point and then thereafter. So just thank you so much, and that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Welcome, please.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Poitras and LAFCO Commissioners. I'm Therese Kohler from East Garrison, part of the former Fort Ord, and I'm here in appreciation and support of the proposed Sphere of Influence Amendment and Annexation for Marina Coast Water District. First of all, my gratitude to your staff, especially Darren McBain, for being available over the last 12 months when we citizens have reached out seeking understanding of the role of LAFCO, Marina Coast Water District, and others in how the annexation could proceed to bring approximately 7.7 miles of lands near existing MCWD boundaries to be officially included within its boundaries. Secondly, our gratitude to the Board of Directors and staff of Marina Coast Water District. In addition to reliably providing water and wastewater collection services year in and year out to its customers, they have been so valuable to us, the average ratepayer, in explaining what annexation means and why it matters. Special thanks to Dr. Tom Moore, MCWD's board president, who shared his knowledge with our East Garrison community on multiple occasions at neighborhood meetings held to educate everyone on the annexation issue. And also to Keith Vandermotten, MCWD's general manager, who you just heard from, for also speaking at several community meetings we held in Marina on various water topics of critical concern. Marina Coast Water District will be annexing areas it has served for up to 20 years. We, the customers who are in these areas, deserve to be on an equal footing with all other ratepayers, and specifically to have the right to participate in the governance of our publicly owned water district, including voting for or even running as a candidate for the board of directors. And Marina Coast Water District itself deserves to have all of its customers integrated and on equal footing. This will facilitate its financial planning and provide a more representative voter base than it currently has. Having the annexation done will provide a new qualitative distinction regarding former Fort Ord lands within discussions around the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA, as both MCWD, GSA, Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and the Salinas Basin GSA go forth with their cooperative agreement to develop a sustainable groundwater plan for the Monterey Sub-Basin. In summary, I urge you to approve the Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Study for Marina Coast Water District and approve the proposed Sphere Amendment and Annexation without any further changes or delays. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Alan Groves. My wife and I are here this afternoon in praise and appreciation for this step, and we certainly urge you to proceed with it. We live in Seaside Highlands and have been, I would say, suffering, but not severely so, for the condition in which we have experienced taxation without representation. And we are grateful that this situation will soon end. that we may be represented directly on the board, we may run for the board, and we can actually vote for board members of the Marina Coast Water District. In our previous lives, we lived in suburban Boston and in the town of Lincoln. Lincoln was the town where the Redcoats in 1776 were first confronted and brutally so by local residents who were seeking restitution for the lack of rights as Englishmen. And in 1775 and 1776, we were fighting for our rights as Englishmen, having been taxed and having no representation. We sent the Redcoats back on the 19th of April, and we do it every year as a reenactment. I was once the captain of the Lincoln Minutemen. I am so grateful that back here we have not had to resort to that behavior in order to get representation with taxation. Thank you very much.
Anybody else out there want to speak? Hearing none, we'll open it up to the commission. Any comments? Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that this is in my district, and ever since I was elected, I have been hearing, well, and even before that, I was hearing from residents at Seaside Highlands in particular, which interestingly was a community of interest or whatever it was called here, significant sub-areas within the proposal. It wasn't listed in the board report, so I was like, what? Wait. But, you look at the map and you see that it's included. But this is something that we have been working on, agitating for, talking about, and really trying to work through the various obstacles, real and imagined, for quite some time. And I just really appreciate the work that LAFCO does to just keep moving things forward bit by bit, and telling folks who have disagreements, go work those out, come back to us when you've got it resolved. And so to have the Seaside County Sanitation District now in agreement, and the city of Seaside wanting Marina Coast Water District more, wanting to have them annex an area which really they can't at the moment. But I just want to express my appreciation also. These folks in my district who have not been able to vote for the board members of their water district, it's been a sore point. And now we have, it used to be just pretty much Seaside Highlands, but the development on Fort Ord has been continuing, and there are more and more people. So I think this is a very good move, and I just want to add my thanks to those thanks that have already been expressed to LAFCO and all the partners in the community who have been working on this for quite some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Parker. And yes, Commissioner Snodgrass.
So I have a question regarding the municipal services review, and it surrounds the fact that I believe Marina Coast is part of a litigation matter between Monterey County and Cal American Water. And I believe they lost at the lower court level, and there's significant attorney's fees that are at risk. And I looked at the financial statements, and I don't see those recorded in there. And I don't know what the dollar amount is, unfortunately, but it seems to be large. So I question whether or not you took that into account in the municipal service review, because if it's in excess of $5 million, the district is going to have some difficult times.
Commissioner, we don't have we don't have anything specific in the MSR that addresses that. We take kind of a high-level approach to the information that we put into the MSR as far as the district's assets, its revenues and expenses. I wonder if it may be possible for somebody from Marina Coast to shed any additional light on this particular concern.
My best to shed light on that concern. So you are correct. There is ongoing litigation over the regional desal project, which actually just the trial date for that has been now recently moved to January of next year. Most of the causes of action in that lawsuit have been dismissed. We're down to very small causes of action right now, so we're at least a little bit more understanding of the range of what could potentially be the exposure to liability. And we do have the necessary reserves, and we've been watching that to make sure that whatever happens, whether if we prevail or we lose that lawsuit, that we have taken into account our finances and made sure that we can get past whatever that decision may be. So we are prepared for that. But it is the number that was seen in the past on both sides has been drastically reduced. So I think as we've gone through the lawsuit and a lot of those causes of actions now have been dismissed, I think we're now pretty clear as to what those potential liabilities are, and they're far less than what was previously reported in prior years.
Since you're up there, I want to do a follow-up to that question, because I think that's a very concern that I don't think that the press is really focused in on, nor probably some of the ratepayers, which is the financial stability of the organization. There's ongoing litigation. Judgments haven't come in favor of the district. What is the current financial situation in terms of being able to pay off those potential debts? I know there's still some litigation, but some of it hasn't resulted in favorable outcomes for the district. So there's the liability is potentially in the millions of dollars. And as we're contemplating this, and as you're looking at annexing new areas, how does the district look financially, and how is it going to be able to deal with enormous potential debt as a result of the litigation?
The district right now is actually financially very strong. We have near 20 million reserves, and we are actually even contemplating going out for additional debt in the upcoming years for additional CIP, so we even have additional capacity to borrow. We recently got about $8 million in grant funds for a recent project from the state, so we are also looking at getting additional funding from other avenues to help with our projects. We recently got a $1 million grant from DWR for our sustainable groundwater management. So right now, we've been managing our finances very tightly, and we're in a very good position, and we continue to have enough to pay for our ongoing operations with the reserves that we need, and we're continuing to build those to a board level. We're not at reserves where we want to be everywhere, but within our current approved rates, which were approved last year, we should be in that window within 5 years. We have enough to pay for our capital improvement projects, enough to do our coverage ratio on our debt financing. So we are in a very strong position. We've had 10 years in a row of CAFR awards. So right now the district is doing very well financially, but we also hope that litigation is something that can be put behind us as soon as we can, and those sorts of unknowns and I guess in some ways non-productive activities can be concluded. But from a financial standpoint, to answer your question, we are in a good position right now, and we continue to put together rates to make sure that's the case, and our rates are still very low, comparatively speaking. And we are also working on master plans right now to establish our fees for development. And so those fees will pay for all that's needed to serve the for redevelopment over the next 30 years, which includes water supply augmentation projects to meet groundwater sustainability efforts. So we are financially looking out into the future. So today we're fine. We have a rate study that was recently approved last year. Our master plans will also lay out the next 30 years for development and what we need to collect. And so I think that everything's okay there.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. And as you know, you could have a healthy reserve, but as soon as the time comes to pay those debts, which could be in the millions of dollars, those could shrink very easily. So I'm going to keep an eye on it. You're on record as well, but I hope that's the case as we move forward. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
I have a question, Chair. I thought those were good questions about liabilities that may be coming up. My question to you is, if this goes through, when will the new eligible voters bill be eligible to vote in what election? I don't know when the next board elections are.
Well, the boundary change will be effective as of probably take about 60 to 90 days to make that, to go through some administrative steps that we have to do before we can record a certificate of completion, at which point those voters, those residents are within the district and can participate in whenever the next general or special election of the district is.
And when would that be?
2020, I believe, November 2020 is the next time.
Next general. Okay. I just want to make a few comments. You can have a seat. I just wanted to ask you why you're up here. Thank you so much. My comments are, Chairman, I'll be brief, is that the contention that Seaside had was just around some of the affluent water and trying to retain that for the sanitation district. It wasn't to block this. It wasn't to make it harder to be done. So I just want to be clear. We were just trying, you guys know the challenges we're having on the peninsula water, and we were just trying to maintain as much water control as we could, negotiating this sphere influence with the Marine Coast Water to make sure we have water to serve the other parts of the Ord community that may not be served. That's the first thing. For me, I've fought for the ratepayers of Marina Coast Water District and the Ord community to be represented on that board since, I guess, 2008 is when I first blocked the budget at 4. I think we did that for a couple of years before we just moved on to something else. So I'm in full support of that. And moving forward, I'm in support of the annexation, but I don't think we should just grab hold to, well, it's about the voters. It's about all of the stuff that we have responsible for to make sure this annexation fits and it's smoothly done and it protects the ratepayers as a whole. So notwithstanding what we did Thursday and Thursday night, I think staff did a great job of answering our questions and our concerns. And I thought even the letter from Land Watch was well-founded and well-grounded, and it made sense to me. So wearing my LAFCO hat, I don't have any objections to moving forward. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the commission? All right, we will close the public.
One more, Chair.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
I have a couple questions for Darren. So Darren, the future study area, so it was, if I understand it, everything that was economic development was taken out of the future study. So that what is the procedure that if we would like to create jobs in this region, that we would solve this by providing a water district?
So what was taken out of the original proposal and redesignated as a proposed future study area were simply parcels that either did not have an existing water meter or, where nobody actually is receiving services, the actual water and wastewater services, or parcels where there is, some parcels were taken out that are designated for development but do not yet have any development permits. So, for example, with Seaside Campus Town, Seaside is actively engaged in a specific planning process for to take that project forward and make it a reality, but it does not yet have approved development permits from the city of Seaside, for example. So that is one, just one example of a project that was in the original proposal but was taken out of the proposal. There's nothing in this action today, or there's nothing about this proposal and the Commission's consideration of it that is to discourage those parcels from coming forward as they as needs arise for services. So when developments such as Campus Town or parts of UC Mbest Center and these very important economic development projects are approved by their respective jurisdiction, they would just need to come back to LAFCO with an annexation for those specific areas, and all other things being equal, it would be a relatively straightforward process.
I'm sure that's what people thought 12 years ago when they started this. I just have to say, and I'm not trying to change it, I just have to make a statement. I just think it's a shame that we got to this point and that we didn't take the whole baby with the bathwater and leave it intact, because we're just delaying. It's a delay game, and unfortunately, jobs and our children suffer. So I too had a question about the pending litigation and the cost to the people who are being allowed into the district and how that will affect them on down the road if we're doing them a favor, but if we're also just burdening them with somebody else's debt. So just that's all.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I did want to just elaborate
Yeah,
on that
sure, go ahead.
point that was just made. The point that was just made, I just wanted to elaborate because it is important to note, even though we're taking off these parcels and putting them off to a future point for a decision. It's pretty well known that if you want to stop development, if you want to stop jobs and housing, cut an ability to connect water and sewage to it, it's not going to take off. We have a housing crisis in Monterey County, and there's parts of the county that we'd love to see some growth, many in South County, but the issue is connectivity to sewer and water. So yeah, there's lawsuits, there's different groups, and in this proposal, it's pushing those off to a future controversial decision by this body. But I just wanted to know what's happening right now. I want the public to know that these were areas that were intended when Fort Ord closed to be areas of limited growth because tens of thousands of acres were put into conservancy, but a limited few thousand acres were intended to bring jobs and economic development as a regional benefit, not just for the immediate surrounding communities, but a regional benefit for the Monterey Bay area. And we're taking the vote, but I just want to elaborate as well that it is what it is, and it's pretty obvious what's happening here. But I hope that those members that will be on this board in the future remember today and what the commitment was in the Fort Ord plan to bring also economic development to our area as a regional thing.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and ponder the matter and see if we can come up with a solution.
Move the item.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All those against? None. Hearing none. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Executive Officers Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the Commission, I have no additional items to report on today. Thank you.
None today, huh? All right. Commissioner comments? Do we have any comments from the commissioners? Seeing none, we'll adjourn. Our next meeting is next month. See you then.